It's a few minutes past 5, so we'd like to go ahead and call this regular meeting of the Santa Clara City Council to order. I'd like to welcome everybody who's here. My name is Rick Rosenberg. I'm the mayor. We've got 3 councilmen in the room tonight. Councilman Denny Drake, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, and Councilwoman Lena Mathis are here. We're expecting Councilman Waite to join us is he on there?
I haven't seen him join yet, but we do.
We're expecting him to join us via Zoom. He took the kids to Disneyland and came back with COVID. So we'll excuse him from being in our presence, but hopefully he'll be able to join and participate in the meeting. But we do have a quorum, so we'd like to go ahead and get started. Since Jarrett's not here, I'll go ahead and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and opening comments. Would everyone please rise and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, Father, we're grateful to meet together this evening as a city council for Santa Clara. We're grateful for all the many blessings we enjoy as a community and thank thee for those. I'd like to thank thee for the city staff and for the time and the effort that they put in on behalf of the residents to provide the public services necessary. Father, we ask a special blessing be upon those that are with us tonight, that if they have concerns, that they can be heard. We're grateful for all the many blessings thou bestows upon us. Ask thee at this time, Father, if thou would please give us some rain and some snow in the mountains, that we'd be able to fill the reservoirs and sustain life here. Again, we're grateful for all thou's given us. Ask thy spirit to be with us and say so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, conflicts and disclosures. Council, do we have anything on the agenda that anybody has a conflict with that they need to disclose? Seeing one, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. On the working agenda, we don't have any public hearings scheduled for tonight. So item B, 4B is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda tonight is approval of the claims and minutes. You've got before you, council, the January 26th, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes and a February 2nd, 2022 city council work meeting minutes and the claims through February 9th, 2022. Just remind you on the calendar of events, we have the budget retreat next week. That's a really important afternoon session, so make sure that's on your calendar. The next time we'll meet as a formal council and meeting will be February 23rd. And the next work meeting is on March the 2nd. And then I need a motion to set a public hearing to receive public input regarding amending the Santa Clara City Park fees for February 23rd, 2022, beginning at 5 p.m. as part of that motion on the consent. I think it can all happen as one motion. We just need to include that specifically in there.
Mayor, I move that we approve the claims and minutes. Also the calendar of events and set the public hearing for February 23rd, 2022 at 5 p.m.
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Krista. Is there any question on that motion, council? This is a money item, roll call vote. All in favor, Lena?
Aye.
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye. Sorry.
You're good. Motion passes. Jared, are you there? Not yet?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. It passes 3-0. Under general business, item C1 is consider approval of a reconsideration of a condition of approval for the O'Reilly project. Jim?
All right, thank you, Mayor and council members. So this is something we've been working on the last couple of weeks with Alex Riggs and Chris Forsyth with CNN Investments Properties LLC on the O'Reilly site, specifically relative to the condition as part of the motion the city council made on December 27th of 2021. And so there were 3 parts to that motion, and we focused in on that as well as a lot of other requirements like we do when we review full plan sets to make sure they comply with all city approvals and other recommendations as required by code. Based on that, we determined that the front elevation included a front door. And the motion that was made by the council on January 27th of 2021 included removal of the door on the north side of the building and lights matching the Dollar Tree lights. So they've talked about that. The lights are good. Lining up the sidewalks good, the way we talked about, but the removal of the door, we discussed that with Mr. Forsyth, and he said that the comments made, I believe his son, Ryan Forsyth, were a little bit premature, and he probably shouldn't agree to that evening. And they apologize for that. But what's happening here is, so the idea was the council wanted the doors to be removed and just replace it with windows if it wasn't needed. Makes perfect sense. But according to the building code, and it's in your memo here, 2018 IBC section 1006 talks about number of exits, talks about maximum occupant load, talks about the different type, mercantile, talks about up to 49. This talks about hazard space for occupants of the showroom floor, and they're showing 56 total on their plan. As a result, a second exit is required from the showroom as per the code. So if we could go, I did, Councilmember Hinton sent me an email last night, and I wanted to make sure we could show the site plan. Next one, here we go. And so here's the site plan. You can see Pioneer Parkway to the north. You've got the east elevation that faces towards the back of the Dollar Tree. That's the front. The south elevation puts its back onto the residence on the other side of the wall. And then the western elevation is going to face the Quenchit and the other building yet to be built. But you can see here, we've got the access drives, we've got the sidewalk, the required parking, landscaping, and you can see a small front door still shown on the site plan if you look really close. So let's go, we're going to have to scroll down just a little bit, Brock, to the building elevation. It's the last one. There are a lot of sheets here, but we'll go to the building elevations. Here we go. And so, in looking at this, the front exterior elevation, that is actually the east elevation. That's the front of their building. It faces east towards the parking lot and towards the Dollar Tree. The right exterior elevation is the north elevation. That's the elevation that faces onto Pioneer Parkway. The rear elevation is the west elevation, and that faces the Quenchit site. And then the last elevation, which I believe says left exterior elevation, it faces southward. We don't have signage or other advertisement on that. That faces towards the residence in the back part of that parking lot. So in a nutshell, we're here tonight to ask the council to reconsider that condition of approval made as part of the motion from January 27th of 2021 that we're requiring the removal of the door on the north side of the building facing Pioneer Parkway. And then we have additionally, the door shall be an emergency exit with access from the inside of the building only. Now, we've told they can do it that way. We don't have a direct sidewalk that connects out to the sidewalk that runs along Pioneer Parkway to promote pedestrians coming back and forth. Really quick, Brock, if we go back to the site plan. I'm sorry, there's multiple sheets, but it's the second sheet. Yeah, the next one. You can see there the site plan. So along the east part of the building, it runs north and south adjacent to the parking lot along the frontage. And then along the north part, there's just a service walk to get to that door, but there's no direct connection to that 10-foot sidewalk that runs parallel to Pioneer Parkway. And then the planter boxes are also required as well. You can see them out adjacent to the sidewalk. We have those for the Dollar Tree. For this application, they're putting them in. And then to the west, we'll also have the planter boxes, that pedestrian type of look along the Quenchit building side as well. So that's the whole thing. That's what we've been told. I know the applicants here. I believe Alexis is on the line. I'm not sure if Chris is. And then if there's questions specific to the building code, our building official, Cody Mitchell, can answer that. So thank you. Any questions of the council at this point? All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jim. Does the applicant want to add anything? They're on, right?
Don't believe so. I haven't seen them join.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, council, questions for the staff?
Sounds like a simple thing.
I think the only thing I would say, Jim, is the landscape plan still shows that sidewalk going straight out to the,
It does. It does. And we've mentioned that to them and they're working on making that change to the landscape plan as well. It's just a lot of red lines, making sure they get it right, going through the approvals, the minutes and the drawings. And we've given them multiple sets of red lines. So,
yeah, just make sure all the plans are reflected the same way so we don't get into a
right,
across the street deal again.
right.
But yeah, with that sidewalk change, I know one of my concerns was that direct connection with it coming in on the one that goes across the real front of the building. I think I'm good with it.
You do. So the only amendment that we're making is just the addition of the door to allow for the fire access.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just going to open, outward emergency only.
Yeah.
So
are you ready for a motion?
I think I am.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we amend the condition of approval for the O'Reilly's project to include the addition of the door for fire exit to comply with the IBC. And I'll second that.
Got a motion by Lena and a second by Krista to approve the reconsideration of the conditional approval and allow the door on the Pioneer Parkway side for emergency access as stated. Any question on that motion, council? Okay, let's do roll call again. All in favor, Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
No Jarrett yet?
Oh, he's there.
Yep, I
Did you say aye, Jarrett?
did, yes.
Okay, great. Nice. We're glad you're with us. We hope you're feeling better, buddy.
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thanks.
Okay, the ayes have it 4-0. So we'll go to the second item C2. This is an update and discussion on the water efficient landscaping conservation standards.
thanks, Mayor. We discussed this last week during a work meeting. We felt it was time well spent and we wanted to continue the discussion. Matt Entz has had a chance to go through some comments that Councilmember Mathis provided. And if we scroll down to the document itself, I've highlighted those. So these are the questions that were asked in the email and Matt has responded to those questions. And then if we go to the document itself, I've highlighted his responses in yellow. I'm going to allow Matt to go through those in just a moment. What I wanted to do, why don't we scroll down just to the first set? I think it's 030. Yeah, there we go. So what I wanted to just hit real quickly, not necessarily really quickly, I just want to give Matt some opportunity to talk, and we spoke about this quite a bit last week, are some of the changes to the document that we had made at a staff level. And these were items that were discussed last week. So you'll see in 1792-030 item A1, where we get to the hot water recirculation system or systems, unless hot water delivery can be demonstrated to occur without first displacing more than 0.5 gallons of water instead of 0.6. And we did talk about that last week. I was reading through the minutes and that was discussed. If we scroll down just a little bit more to the next page, okay, right here, these are the two other items I want to discuss, and then I'll give Matt an opportunity. We talked about the total irrigated landscape area at quite a bit of length last week. We had representatives of the Southern Utah Home Builders Association here. If you remember, we had kind of a sliding scale at 20% of the lot square footage overall, with the lawn area not to exceed 10%. And we had talked about a couple different scenarios last week, going to 8% of lawn area and 18% overall. The question was asked of Mari and Tracy, who were here last week from the Home Builders Association. I know that number was thrown out at 18%, but what about 16? Because that's the number we've heard from the Conservancy District recently. And they were all right with that. So we went with that. We've got the lawn area not to exceed 8%, overall not to exceed 16, and then putting that cap on it on 2,500 square feet, like we discussed last week, we felt the cap of 5,000 was a little high. Again, this is our chance to get us down in the community to that goal of 0.55 acre feet per home or dwelling in the future. Right now, I think we're at 0.89 for the county. I think our situation is 0.86 with this draft, with these ordinances that we've been asked to put in place countywide. With help of the Conservancy District, we're looking to go to 0.78, I believe, and then within a few years, perhaps we could get to the 0.55. So this is our effort and opportunity to do so. I know in the case of St. George, they're even more restrictive. The cap is at 1,500 square feet, is what they told us last week in the city of St. George. So we feel pretty good with that 2,500 square foot cap, being that we have a lot of quarter acre lots and we do have some half acre lots as well. The other thing we changed here is, again, the lawn's prohibited in park strips, but we did change the slope percentage. The Home Builders Association felt that 15 was a little tight and 20 would work, so we've gone with that. I just did want to read an email I received from Mari from the Home Builders Association. I'm not going to pronounce her last name. Mayor, maybe you can do that. You know, I just don't want to get that wrong on the record. But we got an email this afternoon, actually right before lunchtime, which I thought was quite nice. We sincerely appreciate you involving the Southern Utah Home Builders Association in the process. Working together as community partners results in better decisions. Thank you for including some of our recommendations into the ordinance. Stacy Young and I have reviewed the revised ordinance and we support the revisions. I will not be able to attend tonight, so sending this email to show our support. We recognize the city of Santa Clara as an outstanding community partner, and you set a great example for other cities to follow. Thank you. Mari K. So that's all I have at this point. I'm going to turn a little bit of time over to Matt now to go through the changes he made, which are highlighted in yellow. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Questions for Jim before he sits down? Go for it, Matt.
Okay, Jim covered the major changes. The ones that I would just mention are in addition to the changes Jim talked about, we took out some of the restrictive language on the landscape and irrigation design standards based on some feedback we got from the council. So just by way of example, we took out the requirement of a minimum caliper on trees. We took out requirement that trees be irrigated on a separate hydro zone and some other language about hydro zones. We took out, I also took out the section that Lena, you had asked about in the last meeting, talking about rehabilitated landscape sites. I just struck it. So those are the changes that were made other than those that Jim pointed out. There was one subject that I thought was probably worth discussion tonight, and this came up partly because of a question from Lena and a related question from Krista about the effect of these restrictions on gardens. And so the question is, the percentage restriction on landscape area on a lot, do we want that to apply to gardens, or do we not want that to apply to gardens? Currently, the draft as written has a general exception in the very first section that says that this ordinance doesn't apply to any gardens. Well, what's the language? Let me get it here. It excludes
Permitted.
agricultural, horticultural, and gardening uses in any zone. And so today I was emailing with Krista about this and pulled up a couple of the residential zones. In the RA zone, of course, you can have agricultural of, all kinds. There's no restriction on any kind of garden or agricultural use in that zone. In the R110 zone, you can have a garden, you can have fruit trees, and those are considered permitted uses. So under this current language, I would say that any of those permitted uses really should not be restricted by this ordinance the way it's currently written. If we want that to be the case, We may want to clarify in the definitions what landscape area actually is. So that it's clear that gardens and other agricultural uses are not considered part of landscape areas, so they don't fall under this. But I just wanted to make sure we had the intent of the council understood so that we knew what direction we were going to go on this. So.
Well, I think that's a good direction. I think what we already have is fine. I think we ought to allow residential gardens, and it's going to save other issues. And to me, it's a necessary use. We're still limiting the amount of water. It's just the usage still allows them to grow their gardens. So to me, we leave it the way it is with that exclusion.
So just so I understand, is that saying the garden is in addition to the landscaped area?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what I would suggest, if that's the direction that we want to go, which it sounds like, I can make one change to the definition of landscape area to make clear that any of those uses, permitted uses, are not considered part of the landscape area. That way, when we do our percentage, calculation, none of that will be included in the 16%.
I guess, and there's no cap on that, right?
There's no cap on that. It would just be excluded.
The question I'd have is in some of the large lots, the half acre or larger. The intent of the ordinance is to reduce that water usage. On a large lot, you could have a really large garden and connect it to the culinary system. Where I don't know if we can put language in there that would mandate on lots of a certain size that they have a secondary connection to take care of that, because most of the large lots are in the area of the city where the secondary is available. Just so that we don't get a ton of water going outside, and then having somebody cry foul that this guy's got a half acre garden over there and all he grows is decorative landscaping. And then his garden defined where we know what it's a harvestable plant and not just
it's no more defined than it is in the ordinances already, which is not defined.
I can grow bluegrass in my garden.
Yeah, that was my abuse comment.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So
Mayor, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
So also we have in there horticulture is allowed. And I looked up the definition of horticultural, and it includes ornamental plants. So right now it's allowing you to grow whatever you want in a garden that's a plant, basically, as long as it's ornamental. So it says the cultivation of a garden, orchard, or nursery, the cultivation of flowers, fruits, vegetables, or ornamental plants. So yeah, we are kind of getting a little bit of trouble there for sure.
I want to allow gardens. I don't have a problem allowing gardens. I just think we need to be careful that we don't leave it open big enough that we end up with a bunch of turf on the city system on some of the larger lots.
I think when you consider the properties that we're talking about, it's probably a fairly small number of properties, because you look at your RA zone and almost all of those properties have a secondary water source.
We just mandate that they connect onto the secondary so they don't have, and I don't know if that's in there now. I know we've talked about what prevents somebody from switching over after they get the connection to secondary and they don't like the fact their sprinkler heads may get clogged once in a while. That they switch it back to the culinary and then we don't get the usage. And then this is new lots, right? Somebody's already got one. This wouldn't have necessarily, it's not retroactive. So if you got a garden out there right now, you're good to go until we come, and then we're going to come back and we need to come back and go after some of that water. But that's where the incentives will be able to be applied to it. So these would be new gardens.
I guess that was one of my questions in 17.92.030 and B, we took out the word new. And I didn't know if that meant someone's redoing their yard. Is that what we're wanting this to apply to? Them as well, or just to new constructions?
How did we end up?
Sorry, what section, Krista?
17.92.030 B.
I think that was one of Lena's comments in that section. Highlighted.
Yeah, so the main reason I took out new is because up above where we talk about applicability and several places we talk about development and redevelopment, and redevelopment isn't necessarily new development.
Okay.
So that was the main reason for pulling out new from that particular section.
And where it's referring to to construction, most of that will be new unless it's restructuring. So to me, if we put new, that doesn't cover what we're talking about with the redevelopment. So I think it needs to be taken and left with all residential construction.
Yeah, if you look up at the one sentence right under the chapter heading, it says the provisions of this section are applicable to all new single-family or two-family residential development or redevelopment in any zone.
Okay, I see that now. Sorry.
No, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
But that's the reason I took the new out, and then also added the which is subject to this section, just to try and clarify that. It was meant to be the same thing as we were talking about above.
Thank you.
One of the questions that we've seen recently, I know we're talking, I think, to the mayor's point on size of lots. So we've seen more lately of people buying 2 quarter-acre lots and combining them into one large lot. We have a significant amount have happened in the hills, and so then we end up in very large lots which don't have secondary water there, which would allow them to create that issue of larger areas with
Are we
irrigation.
going to set a standard as far as gallonage and cost per gallon?
We'll come back and look at the rate tiers.
Well, and because of that, you will actually know if they're misusing, because the gallon is just going up, and if we need to cut it off, we can cut it
The
off.
concern I have is take the lot in the hills. A guy just bought 2 $400,000 lots. His water bill is, you're not going to care.
No,
We could charge him $20 a thousand.
but we could be a little more restrictive and say this is your maximum use.
Cut them all.
There, and that was brought up last week. If you go to the minutes, that question was brought up, and as you indicated, we will get something on the books and review it and come back to see how that would apply.
Yeah, we're going to start looking at water waste.
Yeah.
And probably look at the tiered rates and all that other fun stuff too. And then hopefully the water district will be able to provide us with some funding that we can actually fund some incentives to try and get, because the concern I have is we're going to get the new development down to the 0.55, but right now our existing development, which is primarily single family, is 0.86. And so we've got a long way to go on the existing 2,100 connections in the city to get to that 0.55.
And I think that's why the tiering is important.
So there's going to be a bunch of steps happen. So, okay, what else, Matt?
Well, so just for some clarification then on that garden issue, we want to put in here a requirement that a lot over a certain size has and uses a secondary water connection for.
If they want to, maybe something, if they want to exceed the turf area allowed, they have to. They can put in the turf that we're allowing any other unit. But if they want to go beyond that, they need to do it with secondary water.
So that suggests then we would include the area for a garden
Yeah.
and for an agricultural use in that percentage, unless essentially unless they have a secondary connection, and then they can exclude it, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what Jarrett brought up is in our definition, I don't think we leave it open that they can grow turf and that sort of thing. It's a food crop or a residential for a home.
Well, here's what we run up against a little bit there that I think we need to be careful of. And that is in our agricultural zone, you can have horticulture of any kind. No, I mean, there's
Well,
no
in the agricultural
limitation.
zone, I
So,
don't have any problem with that. I'm just
Okay.
talking about if we're on a residential lot, that's the limitation.
right. Well, and okay. Yeah. I
But
mean,
we haven't accepted any zones. There's no exceptions at this point, Matt.
right. But what I'm saying is, if you go and look at the permitted uses in the respective residential zones, like I said, the R110 zone says you can have a garden, you can have fruit trees. You go to the RA zone, it says you can have agriculture, horticulture, gardens, no limitations of any kind. And so what we do here is going to potentially affect those zones differently, I guess is what I'm saying. You
I
put
really
it,
don't have any problem with that because there are our agricultural zones are different than our residential zones. And to me, having a different terminology for it is not out of the question as far as residential versus agricultural to me.
yeah.
But an RA zone's kind of a combination of both. That's the problem.
Yeah. I don't think you would have an adverse impact on most lots in the RA zone by putting that kind of a restriction on because they're going to have the secondary water anyway. I mean, frankly, most of them are going to have non-municipal secondary water, right? The ones that are actually doing agriculture,
Yeah,
Likely,
fields and stuff like that are being
likely.
But I don't know. I mean, there may be some out there that if you say you can only have a garden if you have secondary, that, that could be a significant restriction for somebody in the RA zone. I don't know.
That, or I guess you could go in and limit the garden, actually spell out the area that you could have for a garden. If you wanted one.
Does that come into play to the community gardens?
Right.
There's an exception for permitted gardens, right?
That's what we're talking about. There's a general exception right at the beginning for all permitted gardens, horticulture, and agriculture.
And I
So that's why when you go to the zones and look at the permitted uses, that's why that comes into play.
But I would say that, and it'd be simple to do if it's not done now, but if somebody wants to come in and do a community garden, it would be a permitted use. I mean, we'd take them through a process and see, but like the one up on the heights that,
Off of Red Mountain. Mhm.
Trees runs. I mean, that's a great community feature. I don't want to deter that. Because of just the way it happens, it brings the whole community together and it's kind of almost a separate use.
Is it actually permitted? I mean, is there a conditional use permit on that? Because that's not a,
They came and got something from the city before they did that. I can't remember what it was.
yeah, I don't know, but I mean, based on the restrictions in the R110 zone, technically that's not a permitted use, but maybe I don't know. I don't remember.
Would it be grandfathered now? Just if we pass this, since they've got it today, can they keep it?
Well, yeah, certainly. This is only new development.
Right.
So, right, that wouldn't be affected by this, but it's a good example. I'd be curious as to exactly how it was permitted.
I know, and I don't know if I think she came and got approved for the water connection is what it was, because there wasn't a building permit. So there was a meter box, but there wasn't a meter. And they came to council and got something so they could get the water connection. Maybe we waived the impact fee. So they could have a water connection because of it's a community garden. It was going to serve the neighborhood. Have to go back and look at it.
I mean, I guess gardens are a permitted use in R110. It is listed in the permitted uses, gardens and fruit trees. So maybe
Good.
that's maybe with the connection, we figured that was
I've never looked at their water use, Brocky.
I haven't
What's the
either.
use on that lot? It'd be interesting to have that.
Mhm.
And
Probably a lot less than,
That's what, if it was less than that, it kind of answers the question.
yeah.
but to Jarek's question, with the definition that we have for garden, do we need to tweak that so that it, in a residential zone, you are not growing turf and that kind of stuff?
Well, keep in mind that we're talking about two different things because the only one that says horticulture is the RA zone. The R110 zone does not say that as a permitted use.
Good.
So that's why I say, are we worried about limiting horticulture where it's only permitted in the RA zone anyway?
Because that's, you're going to be your secondary systems.
Right.
I'd say.
Can I throw in one more possible problem?
Sure.
Sorry, we don't even address it in the PD zone. So it's not even a permit. Theoretically, it would be a non-permitted use in a PD zone because it's not included.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So you can't even include if you wanted to have a PD with a community garden, you couldn't.
Or a garden,
Or a
A
garden.
garden in
period.
period.
So like,
Really?
How do grow boxes work?
Well, I've got to, let me lay this out. I've been approached by several property owners wanting to do a product that, and I think I talked to your dad about it, her and Matt, doing a cottage, a small cottage retirement community that had a series of cottages in a PD with a community garden.
great idea.
It's where you had 8 or 10 homes and the garden was the amenity for the PD. But you're saying we couldn't do that.
Can't, as our
As
ordinance
it's written.
reads. right
We'd have to
now.
go back and tweak the PD.
Correct, because it doesn't allow for, gardens are not a permitted use in our PD ordinance.
We probably want to tweak that because that garden could be part of the landscaped open space in a PD requirement. Jim, you making notes?
Oh, yeah. That's added to the list. Matt already knows we need to redo the PDR and PDC.
Sorry.
No, that's a good catch because
Yeah.
I've thought about that project a dozen times the last 20 years.
And I'm sure there's a number of us who have gardens in a PD and
Oh, yeah.
we're totally out of compliance.
We're going to get you.
We'll send that code
I'll trade you a
enforcement out
pepper,
there.
I'll trade you a pepper or tomato for this.
I need some tomatoes and cilantro for salsa, then you're okay. No.
I mean, I think really we've kind of just taken gardens for granted, that they're just a use that was accessory to and you could have a garden if you wanted. I mean, I don't think we've ever thought of it as a permitted or non-permitted thing. That's kind of my feeling on it. But maybe we need to take a closer look at that. So,
And I think we want to encourage gardens as long as they're done right.
mhm.
At least the garden that I think of with a garden. I want to encourage that as part of this heritage of the community is those gardens. So you don't want to, you just don't want them to turn into lawn.
Right.
So write that up.
Okay. Okay, so half acre, is that where we want to cap it? Do we want to bring it down smaller than that?
The garden size.
No, the lot size. In other words, what size lot do you want to require secondary water for them to have a garden?
The half acre zone, I think,
Okay,
because we can't. Justin, you ready to run secondary up in the heights?
So a half acre or
No.
greater.
He's ignoring you.
No. No. We can talk about that on Wednesday.
I don't see us getting any half acre lots in Black Desert or
No.
it's
I think the
gonna be
largest
in the
lots in
valley.
there will get some 8s and 10s, maybe 6s, 8s and 10s. We're not going to get anything bigger than that.
It's gonna be in the valley. It's gonna be
Yeah.
on the RA
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
and the existing secondary services, most of it.
Mayor, does Solus have anything to that size?
They're all 10,000 or less.
Okay.
Well, they may have aren't they R110 averaging? is what I remember.
It's in that mixed use,
So that,
mixed lot size, but the great majority of them are 9 to 10,000.
yeah, that's what I remember too. I don't think you're gonna have,
Yeah.
they're not anywhere near that big.
Okay.
What else?
That's all I had.
Matt, are you good with that, with that direction?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Because I'll need to talk to you about it tomorrow because the public hearings with the planning commission tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can make a change.
all right. And then
How does-
this will come back to you on the 23rd.
So Mayor, I still have a couple other quick things.
Okay, go ahead, Jared.
I apologize, I wasn't there last week to go over this, but I did speak with Danielle Larkin a couple weeks ago about the impact this could have on food production for families, this ordinance for all the cities. And we both had the concern that, like, especially in our section under landscape standards where it talks about trees, there's no mention of fruit trees at all. Like, it says that all trees should be water efficient. I don't think you can count a fruit tree as water efficient. And so I wonder if we need to have just a small line that says fruit trees are exempt from this or are allowed, or just make it a little easier for someone to understand it's okay to have a fruit tree. Because I think people will just kind of get scared off and think I can't have a fruit tree, it's not on the list. I just won't plant any. When we've just talked about they are allowed in the RA zone, but it's not spelled out very clearly in this ordinance.
Allowed in an RA and an R110 zone.
Say what?
Fruit trees are specifically allowed as a permitted use in the R110 zone. Gardens and fruit trees, that's what it says.
So would this limit, the way this is worded, would it limit the ability to do a fruit tree?
It's permitted use, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that would fall under the general exception for gardens, horticultural and agricultural uses. But we can add a clarification. I don't think it's a bad idea.
I agree.
And I think, yeah, just the line that is tricky is under 17.92.050, and then just B. And then there it says trees must be suited for water efficient landscapes. And then it gives, a bunch of different things that they must follow the guidance. And just none of that is even close to a fruit tree in my mind. And so I think someone would just read that and be like, well, maybe I can't plant my apricot trees then. So does that make sense?
Jarrett, can you tell me what section you're referring to again?
Yeah, 17.92.50. The landscape and irrigation design and operation standards. And then down on B, where it says tree species must be selected based on growth characteristics and site conditions.
Oh, got it.
The next line says trees must be suited for water efficient landscapes. And then it gives a bunch of guidance. And then on A, it talks about going to the Water Conservancy District's website, looking for plants. And I went through their whole website today, and there's no fruit trees on any of those lists.
Yeah, that's true.
So again, I think someone will just look at this and be like, well, it's not on the list. I don't know if that would be considered water efficient. So I'll just stay safe and not plant any fruit trees, when that's not the intent at all. But I think just the way it's written, it could be interpreted that way pretty easily.
One of my concerns when you get into the trees is that it's not only water, but it provides shade and oxygen. And I would certainly want to see as much as we possibly could to use and utilize the trees rather than losing trees for watering purposes. I don't know how a mulberry tree, which is huge as far as shade is concerned, and what the water usage would make, because it does use water.
You'd think
There's
it'd be more.
some trade-offs when we get to trees, and the same thing is true with fruit trees. I mean, they're a food source, and I mean, if we get so restrictive that we can't put a tree in the ground, then I think we're defeating our purpose in a different way than just water usage.
Maybe we can include some fruit trees in there. You'd have
Heck,
to
I
tweak
don't know
that
what-
section B.
What are water efficient shade trees? Ash?
The list is provided by the Conservancy District. However, I think people are going to plant fruit trees. You know, that's pretty common in their yard, in their backyard. So
Well, can you, instead of saying trees must be suited, can we change it to should be suited? And then add a, however, fruit trees are permitted. And then it solves the issue.
However, fruit trees are permitted. Is that what you said?
Or where permitted.
Yeah, I like that, Lena, for sure.
I think we could, what do you think, Matt?
Mhm.
I mean, it's our ordinance. That's the thing. It's not a one size fits all. Every community is going to be a little different here.
Yeah.
So, because people are going to do it. We're
Right.
going to put that in.
You could verbiage it however, but that might be a suggestion.
How about if I say fruit trees are permitted where they are a permitted use in the zone or something like that?
Fruit trees allowed by permitted use or something like that.
So I think allowed, do we want to get into uses? I mean, fruit trees should be allowed. I'm not sure we want to get that restrictive. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I was
do we
just-
want to call that out in the body of this ordinance?
I was just thinking call out back to the
Zone.
permitted uses in the zone.
Okay,
I don't know,
which we might have to update.
which we might have to update anyway. We've already talked about
We
that.
know that.
You could just put fruit trees permitted where allowed by zone.
Good fruit trees if it's good fruit. No.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then you'll have to change it from must to should.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
UNO
they'll-
50, is that
they
where
won't
we're
work.
at?
Mhm.
Yeah. So it reads now, trees should be suited for water efficient landscapes. However, fruit trees are allowed where permitted by zoning. Good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Is that good, Jarrett?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Okay.
Anything else, Jarrett?
Nope, that was everything. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Council? Matt, did you get through your list?
Yes.
Council,
Right.
any other comments or did you get through your list, Lena,
I did.
Krista,
I did things.
Danny?
Short list, yeah.
It was a short list. Okay, so you've got the information you need to make the revisions?
Yep.
Have we set the public hearing for this yet?
It's
It's
tomorrow.
already set for the
That
23rd,
public hearings occurring
Tomorrow.
at the planning commission tomorrow night.
tomorrow night.
And they'll make their recommendation to you and it'll come on the 23rd to your next meeting in 2
So
weeks.
you'll get these changes back to planning commission before tomorrow night?
You'll get them to me by lunchtime.
Roger that.
We'll get them out
Yep.
there. So thanks.
They're almost done.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. Thank you,
Yep.
Jim. Number 5, Mayor and Council reports. Council, with your permission, we have a group of residents that's here that I'd like to bring in under mayor report. They've asked if they could address council as a citizen comment, I think relative to the construction that's ongoing at Solace. Let me just remind you guys that I need an orange slip from you. If you haven't filled out an orange slip,
I don't know. We don't have the orange slips there because we haven't done.
come get this one and fill it out quickly. And put all your names on it.
We don't have the slips there since public comments only at the work meeting of the first month of the quarter.
Just
so.
hand that to one of your partners in crime out there and I'll let the speaker start while they're filling it out. How's that? Just get everybody's name and address on it. Is there a spokesman for the group? I just need your name and your address
Yes, sir.
and try and keep your comments brief. If you're a spokesman for the whole group, then I can give you 18 minutes. If all of them want to talk, it's 3 minutes apiece.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, thank you. My name's Lonnie Nordberg, and I live at 2758 Bella Sol Drive. We are just west in the Bella Sol subdivision of this new Solis project going in. And some of our concerns. It was just a little over a year ago on December 3rd, I stood here. I'd been in the neighborhood for about 1 hour when I stood up, and Mr. Sullivan had at that time presented a plot plan and a request to rezone that Solis property for single family homes. And I think they were changing it from vacation rentals. And our neighbors that were on Zoom and the neighbors that were here, we all raised our hand in support of Mr. Sullivan's plan at that time. And so now they're out there digging, and that's fine. It broke our heart to see all the little rabbits and all the animals getting scattered, but that's progress. So our concern is we're hearing things like that they're going to put a main road on North Town Road. That was not voted for. They had said that was just going to be a T road. So we wouldn't have a main thoroughfare going right through our Bella Sol subdivision. We're hearing rumors that that's not the case, that that's going to be a main road. So that's a very big concern we have. Another concern is that Mr. Sullivan stated numerous times that the homes that he was going to build adjacent to Bella Sol was going to be restricted in height to 20 feet. And we're hearing rumors now. I'm sorry to come in here with rumors, but that they could be 2-story or they're multi-units. And so I guess Mr. McNulty, he sent me an email, and I have not received it. And perhaps that might clarify some of these questions. But anyway, that was our concern. We want to know just what's really going to happen there. Our question was, they had a planning meeting and all the community was there, and now we're getting stories that that's all been changed and we have not had the opportunity to voice our concern.
Okay. So I can probably address that one. The company I work for is the engineer on it. They haven't told us any of those changes. And so the construction plans that have been approved and the final plats that are ready to get submitted to the city are just the way it was approved. Northtown Road comes into that knuckle and then goes south. The way I remember the restriction was that all the lots that back onto Bella Sol were single level.
Yes, sir.
And that it's not a short-term rental. It's not doesn't have a conditional use permit for short-term rental. So for any of that stuff to happen, the whole process would have to come back through the city. What he has permission to build right now and a grading permit to build is the subdivision that was approved, and you guys were here for the meeting. Nothing more than that at this point. He's working on the design for the townhome project that's on the south of Bella Sol, next to the Desert Village. That part of his project, he's working on the design for that. But everything north of what we call Affirmation Drive, that's the new road that goes from Rachel over to Red Mountain, is all the single family lots with no short-term rental. And it's the layout, the same layout that you guys got is what they have approved to build. So if there is some rumors going out, I know that he has been talking about selling the property, the project, basically. And if there's a new buyer that's thinking he's going to come in and do those changes, he would have to go back and go through the reapproval process right from the beginning, basically, to make any changes to that. And you guys would be aware of that. You get notified for there'd have to be some public hearings involved in that as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's reassuring.
Who told you? You know names? Because I can make some calls.
So,
If it's scraper drivers and stuff, be careful what you hear. I've tried for 30 years to get them to read a set of plans, so I'm not sure how they know what exactly they're building.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you can give me any names, I'm happy to make a few phone calls.
okay. Flat top Hogan's would be very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. I thought you guys were here to talk about gardens, and so I'd maybe let you talk earlier. But I do need that orange sheet back if I can get it from you when you fill it out, when you're done. Does anybody else want to speak? You're good?
No.
Almost.
Can I say something? real quick?
Absolutely. You still got time on his clock.
I'll be really fast. I'm Diana Christopherson and I live in Bellasol as well. And we've been shedding tears the last few days. And I guess my concern is, where is Santa Clara headed? We live in such a spectacular area. And just to see every bit of dry land and with sagebrush on it torn up is just heartbreaking for all of us. And according to what our water manager said, we're going to be out of water in 4.5 years. So we are very concerned about that. But as far as our little community, we just want to be in on the loop and know what's going to come forward. If there is something that we need to know for planning commission or whatever, if there are changes to be made in this development, we would really like to be involved in that.
Okay.
So we
You can-
appreciate your time.
Have you guys signed up for the emails, the public hearing email list?
No, that might be a good idea.
That'd be number one,
Okay,
because then you'll get an email notification of meeting agendas and you'll be able to see that.
yeah, we just rushed today. We didn't know there was a meeting until
Not a problem. And
a
you
little
can,
bit.
you know, you can pay attention to the city website.
Okay, thank you.
And there's some information there relative to meeting agendas, planning commission agendas. If there's any kind of a zone change, you'll get notified. I'm assuming some of you are within 300 feet of the boundary.
So what happens if he sells this?
If he builds exactly what's approved, he's fine. If they want to change anything beyond what's been approved, they have to come back and basically start all over. And they're going to amend. Depends, I don't know what he's thinking, but if they're thinking a short-term rental high-density project, that would require a PD zone change. They would be back in front of planning commission for public hearing. They would be back in front of city council. There's multiple levels of that. They have to put their entire document design package together. So the only entitlement he has right now is just what's been approved.
Okay,
And that's if they're building anything, Cody, Scott, if they're building anything other than what's on those improvement plans, I want to know. But the grading that's happening out there and the improvements that are going in are based on a set of approved drawings that it's easy for these guys to be able to tell if that's what they're doing.
yeah, and the 20-foot height restriction, is that,
That's in the minutes,
That
if
was-
I remember right.
Yeah, we discussed that when we passed it.
Yeah,
yeah,
We
right,
were
so
pretty
it's
clear on
there.
that was a condition.
Yeah, that was a condition. Okay, that's,
And Mr. Sean Solon was fine with it. So,
okay, thank you.
okay, you're
Thanks for your
welcome.
time.
And if you're familiar with any of the councilmen, you can, or councilwomen, you can certainly ask us if there's any changes or anything going on.
Yeah, our emails are on the website. Don't be afraid to reach out. Just don't use a stick. Okay. All right. Let me go to the council. Lena, anything you want to report?
The only thing I have, I'll just do a brief, quick legislative policy update. Meeting Monday was fairly boring. I think if you got on, you probably realized
You were there.
it was fairly boring. The one thing I will tell you, the concern from Mayor Staley on Senate Bill 66 with the electric bikes. It's basically dead in the water. So unless they have some disability component, it's not going to go anywhere. So we don't need to worry about that. And then let me go back one more week because we had another meeting the week before. The Open and Public Meetings Act requirement is probably going to come through, which will allow public comments.
Is that at every meeting or scheduled meetings?
It will be at meetings that you designate.
Okay,
Which
so
you
we
can
can designate
Yeah.
a quarterly meeting where that could take place like.
I
procedural.
don't think you can do it just quarterly. I think the verbiage in it's going to be written that it has to be at either all public meetings or just a work meeting. So I think you're going to have the component at least once a month. However, that's
Probably
going
a
to be
work
viewed.
meeting type deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were still working on some of the language. And the housing bills, they're still working on all the language for the housing bills. So those have not come to fruition. Any of them, SB 34 and none of them. Probably by Monday, so next week. Well, in 2 weeks, I'll probably have a better answer for those. And that's about all. Most everything else were the transit zones and they don't really impact us. So I think that's everything I've got. Oh, I have one more thing. Jarrett, you probably got, I don't know if you all got one of these.
Yes, we
Did you
did.
get one of these?
Yeah, we
Like, I'm so excited. Can I just tell you, Jarrett, thank you. I got my mailer for X-Mission Fiber coming to Santa Clara. I don't know if y'all got it, but it was awesome.
Jared, since that mailer went out, I've got like 30. When's it going to be to my house?
Yeah.
Emails.
And
Yeah,
they're,
I got several emails as well. I have been telling people, well, just so you know, the fiber huts will be in this spot and this spot. So if you're near there, it might be to you sooner. I even got a call from Wendell last night that there was a Utopia contractor out in front of his daughter's house, and he had a chat with them. I was super excited. And so yeah, it's starting to catch on for sure.
and their price point was exactly where they told us it would be, at least based on this mailer. So anyways, thanks, Jarrett. That's all I got.
Thank you, Lena. Krista, anything?
I don't have anything to report this time.
Nothing. No committee meetings yet.
Jarrett?
Just two quick things. I know Gary needs to know if we're going on that tour. So do you want to do that right now? I can't see if Gary's in the room, if he's going to ask later. But you want to know by today?
Going back. Are you going?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, just send Gary your information that he needs to get the ticket.
Okay. And then we also need to be thinking about when we could do a tour with Gary of just the power department. So maybe I'll just send out a few dates to everyone. We can start picking and choosing when that might work to just have him take us through the facilities and help the council understand his job and what his staff do and everything. So I'll be working on that. And that's all I have to report.
Gary?
Okay, thanks, Jared. Yeah, I just put together a couple dates. I can make whatever work. So whatever works the best for you and other council members would like to attend.
Can I ask a question of Gary? I
Absolutely.
know we normally don't do that, but yesterday my grandson pointed out to me that there was a huge crane. It looked like it was down at the city yard.
They're installing the
Generator?
radiators,
Oh, the radiator.
and the exhaust stacks will be later this week or maybe the first next week. So they're getting there.
Cool. Okay.
Very cool. Anything else, Jarrett?
Nope, that's all.
Okay. I made it to the Transportation Expo yesterday. I don't know if anybody else had a chance to go down there and look at all the fancy projects, transportation projects, but it was good and they had a lot of people there. I actually went down to listen to Mayor Randall give her state of the city so I could get a few pointers. Because ours is coming up fairly quickly, a couple of weeks. So, but that one went good. The MPO Executive Committee met. There wasn't really anything mind-blowing for Santa Clara on that one. Flood Control Authority met and funded some some projects in St. George. And we have some projects to get funded that we'll talk a little bit more about when they're ready, but and then we've met discussing the water issues several times with the staff and with the other cities and their staff. And I'm excited about the ordinance. I like the ordinance. I like the changes that we made tonight. And I like the fact that this ordinance has kind of taken on the personality of Santa Clara. And maybe that's the part I like the most. And so let's get it in. We've got projects out there that we can implement it on. And I think that's going to be important. What else, Brock, that I need to tell them about? Anything you remember?
Can't remember anything else off the top.
Let's pull the staff. Kara, you got anything? Bradley? Chris, Dale? Gary?
Of course.
Jack Jr.
I just did give Scott a hard time. Just to give you a quick update on the generators. They said the radiators are good, are there and installed. It'll take a little while for them to get all the piping and the electrical done to it. There is one hiccup with the breaker cabinets. The manufacturers making them, they are so far behind, I guess. And so they're predicting that they won't be ready until mid-May. So we're still hopeful. Wheeler's doing all they can to try to push this along. As soon as Caterpillar receives that cabinet, they'll get the electronics put in it and the breakers and then ship it to us. So I'm hoping they can work 24/7 once they get it, to get everything done and shipped to us so they can get it installed. But there's a possibility that the two new ones won't be running for those last 2 weeks in May, May and maybe even in June. So that's not the best news, but
That's not the best news.
but our other two should be running. There'll be a little bit of an interruption once that breaker panel does show up. We'll have to stop running our two old generators in order for them to install that breaker.
Was there an outage today?
Yes, they're still working on it right now up on Canyon View. Yeah, there's
What happened?
This is the direct buried cable that's pretty old.
Gone bad.
Just somewhere it faulted, and it's actually faulted in 2 spots. So I don't know if the one fault drew enough current to cause another fault, but there was 2 spots. So there's no way to backfeed it. So they've got to fix it tonight to get the power back on. Eric said he's got about 20 to 25 people out of power still.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All righty. Questions for Gary? Dustin, anything? Did you get the traffic jam taken care of? Oh, it's that on button on his phone. Scott? Cody? Is your mom okay? Okay. Jim? Brock?
Yeah, let me add the 2 things. One, we got notice from the owner of the property across from Santa Clara Merck that we had a parking agreement with. They are going in process of selling that property and the house that they also own. So that parking agreement will be going away. So I don't know, it's been used as much since the restaurants that left down there, which was part of the main reason those were there. Secondly is just remember budget retreat next week. Should be getting an email from Debbie shortly to get an order from you guys. So
11:30, right?
yes. Yep. We'll should hopefully get started promptly. Plus we'll need all the time.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, we do have an executive session tonight to discuss pending litigation. So I need a motion to go into executive